of the day?
The first victim is a wildly wealthy man.
A wildly wealthy man?
Yes.
Right. Now, this wildly wealthy man wouldn't have been someone who rocked up about 2003 with a bunch of 450 women and the only man in the audience, would he be?
Yes, so please welcome Brian McNichol. Stand right in front of that. So you turn up at a seminar event in 2003, yeah? You're going around and looking and watching seminars and learning stuff, and you're the only guy in the room. What are you thinking?
Why am I here?
Well, Wildly Wealthy Women was a women-only investment, and the only two guys, well, within reason, the two guys that were in there were you and Scott Nicholas. So Scott Nicholas was doing all the investor loan stuff, and you can imagine what it was like. It was a room full of women.
Yeah, I felt rather uneasy.
What were you thinking in that room?
I shouldn't have been here.
So you had light bulbs. So you did go and see Dymphna eventually, and looked at what she was doing. You had a light bulb moment around the fact that the trust and the protection and the structures and what you were doing.
Yeah, I'd been doing accounting, tax and things like that for about 16, 17 years, and I've been advising clients when they came and said, how can I save tax? I suggested negative gearing.
Which is what you learned from university, and you were just doing what you
Yeah, and at uni, back in those days, they'd probably talk about trusts for maybe half an hour and basically say that the tax office didn't like them, so avoid them.
So here you are as a graduate accountant who's advising on negative gearing because that's what you were taught, and also don't go anywhere near trusts because that's just a big warning bell for the ATO. They think you're trying to avoid tax.
So Dymphna was kind of a fresh air, and I thought some of this makes sense. So,
now you'd gone off and you were investing because you could do whatever you could, and your wife was there. So you decided your wife would do the share stuff and you would do property stuff, and you'd go off investing, and you're an accountant, you know your numbers, and you ended up with a decent portfolio there. But how far negative were you per year in that portfolio?
on that one about 180 something odd, and then
184,720 negative every year.
And then we had another 12,000, I think, on top through the shares.
So you lost money in shares. So together as a partnership, really working out well for you.
Well, and also, I never intended to be rich. I just wanted to provide for a nice, comfortable retirement. And, when I was growing up, we had all these things about, money being the source of all evil. And so, being rich was never a goal.
Yeah, your 6-year-old was taught from the beginning with your parents saying money's no good, and you've all heard Dymphna's story, exactly the same thing, right? So you had to essentially look at that portfolio, and I've been there and done that, and said, selling is an option right now because, if you want to go from negative 184,000 to neutral, all you had to do was sell your properties, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah, and hopefully you had some money left over. Now, in that process, I lost $300,000. For you, you went off and you started looking at the sell down, right? So in the sell down, you've sold, a couple of properties at this point in time. You've got one under contract. Now, this one under contract, I think we talk about it a bit further on. Yep, we do. And this one's still on the market right now. But the one that's under contract has the ability to do something to it. Yeah?
Yeah, we originally bought it for cash flow, surprise, surprise, and it had student accommodation. So for a while it was going along, and then I sat down and did the numbers and thought, well, I'll get more by just renting it as one house rather than having it as student accommodation. By the time I paid rates, electricity, it had a pool, which, you know, is not a good thing.
And then
we had
it's-
to get a cleaner in.
And then it's empty 2 months of the year as well.
No, well, we were surprisingly lucky because we had Asian students that liked to
Always a
secure
great-
the accommodation all the way through.
Yeah, so international students, you're going to do students, international students are a great market because even if they do go back overseas, they will have a holding deposit and they'll pay you half rent or whatever they'll do. So you were lucky there.
So
Now,
that one then went from being basically a resi, it got then rezoned to 3 stories and then rezoned to 5 stories. And when we found out it was going to 5 stories, we decided we'd do a DA. We spoke to council, got them to agree that they'd assess it on a 5-storey, which hadn't gone through the town planning, or been approved by town plans at the stage. And then we had to wait until the town plan got approved before we got the subdivision. Oh, sorry, got the DA on it.
approval. So effectively what you've done, if you look at existing portfolios, say, sell out what we can do, what can we do with other stuff? And this one here essentially has allowed you to get approval using what you've learned from Dimner to get a higher price for that property. Because if you sold it without approval, you'd
We'd identified a couple of others that we were going to sell, and then when we sat down with Dimner, she said, well, no, don't sell this one, but sell that one. And we'd always had a habit of buying things before we sold. So Dimner would say, sell before you buy.
yeah.
So
Pretty important structure to do it in that order, coming from an accountant. And so I will say this, you had joined Dimner previous in Ultimate and decided in 2012 at that $184,000 mark that you would join.
Wasn't good.
Yeah, you would join Platinum. That this was, you needed a kick up the bum, and I can tell you I fluffed around for 2 years after joining, expecting the world to change for me, and it wasn't really till accountability came along that something made a difference. And so this is post joining Platinum and a few years after joining Ultimate. So you've sold that one. We've now got this property here, which is a New Zealand subdivision. So tell us about why you went to New Zealand.
And Nick got a job over in New Zealand as the University Librarian in Waikato, which is Hamilton, about an hour south of Auckland. And I took some annual leave, went over and got bored, so I went and bought property because I could.
Now, at that point in time, though, you know, pre-Platinum, you went out and bought property, and when the banks stopped lending to you, what did you do?
Well, that was pretty much it. But by going to New Zealand, we could take some money over. The way we afforded the negative 184 or whatever it was basically by refinancing, taking the money and putting it aside. Sometimes we'd go and buy other property. But basically the refinancing was the thing that survived.
So you were refinancing to pay your negative gearing. And there are some property educators that live by that rule, that you buy property, you wait for it to go up in price, you refinance against it, and that's how you live your life. You use your mortgage.
There was one person heavily promoting that, and I thought, well, that's a good idea, it's a good way to fund retirement. And then the GFC came along and interest rates went up, and it wasn't such a good idea after all.
So this one's a New Zealand one that you owned, subdivision potential.
Yep, we're doing 4 out of 2 on that one.
Now this one's an interesting one because New Zealand rules, and this is why Dimner runs programs for overseas investors as well, you had a tenant in there.
Yes. She'd been in there for 9 years. So, quite a reasonable tenant. And we had everything ready to go in terms of getting the drainage, and they call it a right-of-way or an easement over there. We had to go through and concrete that. The week before, they said that they were coming on site, and she says, no, you're not. So that kind of put a rather
because
quick stop to everything.
In New Zealand law, you have no rights. A tenant, you cannot force, you can't give notice to a tenant. In that case, you couldn't do it.
if we asked her to leave based on the fact that we were going to basically do this subdivision, she could have taken us to the tribunal over there and we would have lost and paid her quite a hefty sum of money. So we waited and eventually, luckily she chose to move out.
You coerced her out. Okay. Another subdivision in New Zealand, 182. So they have a house on this one, at the front.
Yeah, well, the other one's got 2 houses as well, but we don't have to move those. This one we actually do, and it's close to the hospital, so the plan is basically that once we've done the subdivisions, we'll basically sell off the land and pay down debt.
This one here is the 5-storey development. You had a decision to make here, so you decided to sell it.
Yeah, probably ego was driving that one a bit because it was really my baby. I spent a lot of time designing it with the town planners and the architects, and then we sat down and worked out. Probably take us 18 months or so to do. It'll tie us up financially. We wouldn't be able to do anything else. So we eventually came to the decision that we should sell that one, take the money, do smaller subdivisions, turn them over, and probably make the same amount of money for less risk.
Glad someone listened to what I've got to say, because essentially this deal would tie you up for 18 months and you wouldn't be able to do any other deal except JVs with your knowledge. And the ego says, well, I better put that to the side. I'll go off and do little deals everywhere, and it'll take me the same amount of time, and it'll be less hassle, less stress, less financing, all the rest of it. That's my preferred option. I'm not saying that everyone in this room do that. That's what Brian decided to do. That's what I decided to do. This one here is in Salisbury. Yeah.
Yep. This was, you've probably heard of people talking about the trees and the cost of getting rid of those. This was one that we had to do. Originally the house was built facing a non-existent road because the council were going to put the road in, and then they turned around and told the guy that they wouldn't and offered to sell the land back to him. He wanted to buy it at the same price that he sold it to the council, and they wouldn't be in it, so it was just a stalemate. When I came to do the subdivision, it worked out better for us to get permission from the council to put the road in, have the house facing the existing road, or what would then be the road, and then have a battle axe block for the land that we subdivided. That one had a tree on it with possums and stuff like that, so it cost us, we had to replace one tree with 15 45 litre trees, have an arborist and a fauna spotter there.
You ever heard that story before? It's one of my stories too.
Yeah, and you can't employ anybody to chop the tree down with Brisbane City Council. They have a list of nominated
preferred listing people to chop. Yeah,
and they charge.
All right, so this one here, you're doing extending and selling. You sold the land.
We sold the land
and kept the house.
Yep.
All right.
And we bought the land for $330. We sold the vacant land for $350. So we've basically got a house
debt free.
Well, almost.
Within a bit of the cost of the subdivision and stuff. So it's a very low debt. And
this was the renovation that we started. Originally it was going to be a nice simple one of changing the bathroom. So we went out and bought the tile paint, and we spent 3 days painting the bathroom. My eldest son came over and said, there's a leak in the shower. So before we knew what had happened, he got in, ripped everything out of the bathroom, ripped the floor up. And
so ripped the kitchen out, then he went off and started and put a new deck on as well. He's a builder, obviously.
Yes.
And so this small little cosmetic renovation turned into a full structural one. Yeah.
But we've been able to increase the rent on that one, so it's now cash flow positive, and we'll hold on to it.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, so at this point in time, Dipner says, you know, you're at a point where you should go off and do other things, and commercial is where you spoke about. I remember the actual event where she said, commercial's for you, Brian. This is the first one you bought, and this one's in super?
Yep. Again, because of our situation, the only way that we could buy things was through super. So when I looked at this one, I'd been looking for tenanted properties to go into super. This one, I then started looking at untenanted properties, and this one was listed under untenanted, but when you read the ad, it was that a new 5-year lease would be negotiated with the purchaser. So it had been sitting on the market for a while, basically because of the poor advertising. So we've negotiated a nice lease, 5 by 5. The doctor's been in that particular building for 17 years. So
straight up purchase. What's the rough passive income coming from that? We got figures at the end, haven't we?
Sorry?
We got figures at the end.
Yeah.
All right, so the bottom right-hand photo is the photo of what they're actually building next door. You can see they're building next door. So you're just going to do a mirror opposite if that doctor decides not to take up the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we're kind of hoping he won't, but you know, either way, we'll be happy.
Yep. Then you go off and you buy a strata-titled government tenant place.
Yep. This was in Taree, New South Wales government. They'd spent probably $1.5 million odd doing the fit out on this one. They'd put in their own kitchen, their own toilets, even though there was toilets and kitchens on the floor. Security reasons for governments, they normally insist on putting their own fit outs in, so they're very unlikely to be moving in the short term, and they've actually identified that particular building as one that they want as whenever any vacant space comes, they want to grab it.
So that property there, I've got notes, 29,000 passive income straight out, not having to do anything next 5 years, guaranteed, plus a 5-year extension for buying it right today. This one here, tenant already in there, there's a government tenant, guaranteed to pay rent, 40,000 passive income out of that one.
3.5% increase each year, so yeah.
That's going up as well,
yeah.
So it's indexed as well. So now you're at the point where, you know, you've got your super fund, you can draw on those funds. I'm not giving advice here, that's what you're doing in your super fund, and you are now got extra time, so you're influencing your family around you. Your kids start to get influenced as well. So this one comes along and you do
Jonathan's our middle son. He decided he wanted to sell, so we then spoke to him about staging the property, and he sold it the first weekend that it was open for inspection.
For more than what, you know, about what he wanted, and if not.
Well, no, it ended up being about 50 to 60,000 more than he thought he'd be getting.
Yeah, you're a good dad. Then this one here, you're mentoring.
This is the replacement. Jonathan and Lachey didn't want any old house. They wanted something that they could make some money out of. So we spent a number of months looking around. This one came along and they've been able to secure it for $630. Vacant land in that area itself for about $450. So they'll live in it for a couple of years, demolish it. It's already got the DA on it for the subdivision.
So you know, they're going to live in it, $450,000, so it's $900,000 worth of value. They're going to live in it. They had to live somewhere anyway. They may as well make money out of their PPR. Father helping out again with knowledge. Your daughter-in-law comes in here.
Yep. This was one that we've purchased.
You split it into 4 rentals, this one?
We're going to split this one and then build 2 3-bedrooms plus auxiliary dwellings down the back. We should have started that one, but the rental agency, instead of giving a 6-month rent, gave them 12 months.
Some agents are good, aren't they? Okay, so then you go off, and James, or another son?
Yeah, he's our eldest, so he's the builder.
So he's bought a couple of them. There's 2 houses there that he's bought and doing stuff too.
The top right-hand side was a little 2-bedroom termite infested. So he bought that for about 109, I think it was, and he got in with one of his mates, lived in it, and then basically converted it from 2 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms. Now rents it out. He then went and bought.
What's the new value after that at the end?
Probably about 430.
So $109,000. A builder. There's how many builders in this room? Hand up. Right? $109,000. Termite flood or fire damage. Go in, live in it, do it up while you're living in it. Do it up as an investment property. It doesn't really matter. You know, you might spend $100,000. You take it from $100,000. It owes you $200 and it revalues at $400. Put someone in there renting it and move off and go off. Right? And the other one?
The other one was one that he purchased. He's then 3 bedrooms upstairs, and then he's built a granny flat in underneath, and he lives underneath, rents out the upstairs room by room, and he's
Good one.
quite happy. He's been paying down his mortgage quite successfully, and last Sunday they normally come over for a roast dinner on Sunday night, and he said, I'd like to get into this property. Probably hate it, so we've said, okay, well, next couple of years you've got to replace your income, and then
we'll get into it.
Joint ventures with
So Luke also goes in?
Yep. Luke, well, basically all of them had purchased their first house by the time they were about 21, 22. Luke got the Brown place at Denala, so it's not a flash suburb, but about 2 weeks before he turned 21, he purchased that one. Lived in it for a few years, then he's had it rented out. It's got timber floors, but it's actually got concrete walls, and so almost indestructible.
It's Inala.
Denala.
It's probably one of Kevin doing these things when they redid the whole Inala. All right, so for you it's more important than just property, yeah?
Yeah. It's really now basically been teaching the family. We've been doing that for a while. I think the kids thought I was, we'd purchased one at Kedron that, again, early in the piece with Diffman, so we thought renovations would be a good idea. And we purchased just to do the renovations, then sell it on. And part of the way through that, I ended up getting sent to Thursday Island for about 5 months.
Right.
So Annette and the kids were the ones that got landed with completing the renovations before we could sell it.
Good on them. So your learnings. Obviously we talked about stacking strategies.
Yep.
Negative gearing's not for anyone.
Negative gearing's not a strategy for us anymore.
Yeah.
So we basically, anything that we look at now, we try to see whether there's 2 or 3 strategies that we can apply. We always have basically an exit strategy worked out from day one. And
all right, so for you, your final result since joining Platinum in 2012 is that you went from negative 184,000 to positive 65,000 in 3 years. That's pretty amazing. So if you were sitting in the audience today, what would you like, what advice would you give them?
To me, education's been important, whether it be seminars or books. So, you know, I can't stress the education side of things. The asset protection and, you know, things like that you hear about, certainly worthwhile. But as Kevin was saying yesterday, don't follow the herd. You know, you've been given a brain, you can get all the education, but then it's really up to you to make some decisions. And we've been very, very fortunate with Diffma. She's been very well, we've had a number of meetings with her, and you know, just the time and that she's been prepared to put in to sit down with us and work our way through different things. It's been fantastic. So, yeah.
Round of applause.